My name is Sarah Michelle Parker, and I'm 28 years old. Picture this. You're sitting at your parents' kitchen table on a Tuesday evening, thinking you're there for a normal family dinner, when your father slides foreclosure papers across the tablecloth and says, "Sarah, we need you to sell your house to save Ashley's future." The room went dead silent. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. My sister Ashley sat there twisting her engagement ring, the same ring that cost more than my car. And my father, the man who taught me that family comes first, waited for me to sacrifice everything I'd worked for to bail out my sister's gambling addiction. What they didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this moment for 2 years. What they couldn't have imagined was that their solution would become my opportunity. And what happened next would change our family forever. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before I tell you exactly how I turned their manipulation into my liberation, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy stories about family boundaries and financial independence. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments below. I love seeing our community grow. Now, let me take you back to the beginning of this mess, back to when I thought family loyalty meant endless sacrifice. Growing up as Ashley Parker's younger sister meant living in a very specific role. She was the golden child, the one with natural charisma and big dreams. I was the responsible one, the one who got good grades and never caused trouble. Ashley got a brand new Jeep for her 16th birthday. I got a part-time job to pay for my own gas money. Sarah's so practical, my mother would say, with that particular smile that made practical sound like settling. She'll always land on her feet. Ashley went to an expensive private college on Dad's dime. I went to community college and worked nights to pay my way through my bachelor's degree. Ashley majored in communications and partied her way to a 2.8 GPA. I studied accounting and graduated with honors. But somehow, Ashley was always the success story. When she got her first job at a marketing firm, the family celebrated like she'd won the lottery. When I got my first accounting position at a local firm, Dad just nodded and said, "Good. Steady work." The pattern was set early. Ashley was special. Sarah was stable. Ashley deserved investment. Sarah deserved expectations. 3 years ago, I finally saved enough for a down payment on a small 2-bedroom house in Riverside, about 20 minutes from my parents. It wasn't much, but it was mine. 1,200 square feet of independence, with a little garden in the back and a mortgage payment I could actually afford. The day I got the keys, I called my parents, excited to share the news. "That's nice, honey," Mom said. "Ashley just got promoted to senior account manager. She's looking at condos downtown now, too." That was it. No congratulations, no excitement, just a redirect to Ashley's achievements. I should have seen the pattern then, but I was too busy being grateful they acknowledged it at all. Ashley never did buy that condo. Instead, she started dating Marcus, a guy who claimed to be a day trader but spent most of his time at the casino. I learned this at family dinners, where Ashley would casually mention their weekend trips to Atlantic City and laugh about Marcus's system for beating the house. "He's so smart about investments," she'd gush. "He turned 500 into 3,000 last weekend." I kept my mouth shut. I was just the practical sister who balanced her checkbook and maxed out her 401k. What did I know about taking risks? But I knew enough about math to understand that for every story about winning 3,000, there were probably 5 stories Ashley wasn't telling about losing 500, or 1,000, or more. The first sign of real trouble came 18 months ago. Ashley asked to borrow $2,000 for a business opportunity. She needed it fast, she said, and the banks were being difficult about small business loans. "It's guaranteed money, Sarah. Marcus found this investment opportunity. We'll pay you back in 3 months with interest." I should have said no. Any rational person would have said no. But family comes first, right? That's what Dad had always taught us. I wrote the check. 3 months came and went. When I asked about repayment, Ashley looked confused. Oh, that investment didn't work out like we expected. But don't worry, we'll get you back soon. Marcus has another opportunity coming up. 6 months later, still no repayment. When I brought it up at Thanksgiving, Ashley got defensive. I can't believe you're pressuring me about money at a family dinner. It's not like you need it right away. You're so financially stable. Dad jumped in immediately. Sarah, family helps family. Ashley's going through a rough patch. A rough patch. That's what we were calling it. The rough patch got rougher. Ashley started showing up to family events with new designer purses and expensive jewelry, claiming Marcus was doing really well with his trading. But she still couldn't pay me back the $2,000. Then came the requests for more help. Could I loan her another $1,000 for rent? $500 for car repairs? $800 for Marcus's emergency medical bills? Each time I said yes. Each time my parents praised my generosity. Each time Ashley promised this was the last time. By the time that Tuesday dinner rolled around, Ashley owed me $12,000. $12,000 I'd saved through careful budgeting, overtime work, and skipping vacations. $12,000 I'd never see again. But somehow, I was still the one being asked to sacrifice more. The foreclosure papers Dad slid across the table weren't for Ashley's place. They were for my parents' house. The house I grew up in. The house Dad had owned. Free and clear until 6 months ago. We took out a second mortgage to help Ashley, Mom explained, her voice barely above a whisper. She needed capital for Marcus's business venture. It was supposed to be a sure thing. A sure thing that lost $75,000 in 3 months. The payment is more than we can handle on Dad's retirement income, Mom continued. We're 3 months behind. The bank wants full payment in 30 days or they'll foreclose. I stared at the papers. The amount due, $89,000. Your house has about $90,000 in equity, Dad said, not quite meeting my eyes. If you sell it and give us the proceeds, we can save the family home. The family home that they'd risked for Ashley's gambling addiction. What about Ashley? I asked. Where's her contribution to fixing this? Ashley finally spoke up. Sarah, you know I don't have that kind of money. My job doesn't pay like yours does. Her job that she'd barely kept while spending weekends at casinos. Besides, she continued, you're single. You don't really need a whole house. You could rent an apartment, save money. Save money? After I sold my house to save their house. Think about it, Dad said. When we're gone, you and Ashley will inherit this place anyway. This way, you're just investing in your future. Our future, not my future. Our future. I looked around the table at 3 people who had just asked me to give up everything I'd worked for to fix a problem I didn't create. 3 people who thought my stability meant I was obligated to be their solution. I need some time to think about this, I said finally. Time? Ashley's voice rose. Sarah, they're foreclosing in 30 days. How much time do you need? As much as I need, I said, standing up. This is a big decision. Dad's face hardened. Family comes first, Sarah. I thought we raised you better than to hesitate when your family needs help. That phrase, family comes first. The phrase that had convinced me to loan Ashley money I'd never see again. The phrase that had made me the family bank while Ashley played with house money. I'll call you tomorrow, I said, gathering my purse. Sarah, Mom called as I reached the door. Please don't make us lose our home. The guilt trip, the final card they had to play. I drove home in silence, my mind racing. Sell my house to save theirs. Give up my independence to enable Ashley's addiction. Start over at 28 so she could keep playing games at 31. But as I pulled into my driveway, looking at my little house with its neat garden and the porch light I'd installed myself, I realized something. I wasn't the only one with a decision to make. That night, I did something I'd never done before. I researched my parents' financial situation, public records, property assessments, mortgage documents, all available online if you know where to look. What I found was interesting. My parents' house, the family home they were so desperate to save, was worth about $210,000. After paying off the second mortgage of $89,000, they'd have equity of roughly $120,000. My house was worth $95,000. After paying off my mortgage of $42,000, I'd walk away with about $53,000. Not enough to buy another house in the same area. Barely enough for a down payment on something smaller and farther from my job. So their plan was for me to give up my $53,000 to save their $120,000 asset. An asset they'd foolishly risked for Ashley's gambling problem. The math alone was insulting. But there was more. I dug deeper into the property records and found something interesting. My parents had bought their house in 1987 for $38,000. Even after the second mortgage disaster, they had massive equity built up over decades. I, on the other hand, had been building equity for exactly 3 years. They wanted me to give up 3 years of equity building to save their 35 years of equity building for Ashley's gambling debts. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Not just angry, determined. I called in sick the next day and made some phone calls. First, I called a real estate agent about getting my house appraised and listed quickly. Then I called a mortgage broker about pre-approval for a new loan. Finally, I called a private investigator. If I was going to sacrifice my financial future for Ashley's mistakes, I wanted to know exactly how big those mistakes were. The private investigator's report arrived 3 days later. What I learned made my stomach turn. Ashley didn't just gamble occasionally. She had accounts at 6 different casinos, credit lines at 4 of them. She'd been gambling online daily for 8 months. The total losses, just in the past year, were over $130,000. $130,000. She wasn't in a rough patch. She was a full-blown gambling addict who had already burned through my parents' retirement security and was now coming for mine. And my parents either didn't know the full extent of it, or they were choosing to enable it, rather than force Ashley to face consequences. That evening, Dad called. "Sarah, we need an answer. The bank called today. They're starting foreclosure proceedings." "I'm selling the house," I said. The relief in his voice was audible. "Thank God. I knew we could count on you. You're saving the family, honey." "I'm selling the house," I repeated. "But I'm not giving you the money." Silence. "What do you mean?" His voice was careful now. "I mean, I'm selling my house, and I'm using the proceeds for something else." "Sarah, we talked about this. The family needs Ashley to stop gambling away everyone's money," I interrupted. "Did you know she's lost over $130,000 in the past year?" More silence. "How did you?" "I hired a private investigator. I wanted to know exactly what I was being asked to sacrifice for." That's private information. Private information that's destroying our family's financial security. Dad, she's not going to stop. Giving her this bailout will just enable her to gamble away more money. She promised she's getting help. When? Before she lost your retirement savings or after? I could hear him breathing heavily on the other end. "What exactly are you planning to do with your house money?" he asked finally. "I'm going to make an investment that actually makes sense." "What kind of investment?" I took a deep breath. "I'm going to buy your house at the foreclosure auction." The phone went dead. 2 minutes later, it rang again. This time it was Mom. "Sarah, your father is having chest pains. How could you say something so cruel?" "Mom, I'm not being cruel. I'm being realistic. You're about to lose your house anyway. At least, this way, it stays in the family. But we won't own it anymore. You don't own it now. The bank does. and in 30 days they'll sell it to whoever bids highest at auction. So you'll bid against strangers for our home? I'll bid against whoever shows up. And I'll win. Then what? You'll evict us? I paused. I'd been thinking about this part all day. Then you'll pay me rent, fair market rent, and Ashley will get professional help for her gambling addiction, or she won't be welcome in my house. Your house? Mom's voice cracked. Sarah, this is our home. Was your home. You gambled it away on Ashley's problems. We were trying to help family. You were enabling an addict. There's a difference. The next morning, Ashley called. Sarah, what the hell is wrong with you? Mom and Dad are devastated. What's wrong with me? Ashley, you've lost over $130,000 gambling in the past year. You destroyed Mom and Dad's retirement security. You've borrowed $12,000 from me that you'll never pay back. And you want to know what's wrong with me? How did you find out about the gambling? I hired someone to find out. I wanted to know what I was being asked to sacrifice everything for. That's a violation of privacy. So is borrowing money under false pretenses. So is convincing our parents to mortgage their home for your addiction. I don't have an addiction. I just had some bad luck. $130,000 of bad luck. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You have a gambling problem, and everyone in this family is expected to pay for it except you. I'm trying to get help. When? You've been saying that for 2 years. I mean it this time. Prove it. Check yourself into a treatment program before the foreclosure auction. I can't just drop everything and go to rehab. You can drop everything and go to Atlantic City every weekend. Silence. Sarah, please. Don't buy the house. Let Mom and Dad keep their dignity. Their dignity? Ashley, where was my dignity when you borrowed $12,000 and never paid it back? Where was my dignity when Dad asked me to sell my house to fix your mess? That's different. How? Because you can afford it. There it was. The real truth. Because I was financially responsible, I was supposed to be financially responsible for everyone else too. Not anymore, I said. I'm looking out for my own interests now. That's so selfish. Is it? Or is asking me to sell my house for your gambling debt selfish? She hung up. The foreclosure auction was scheduled for a Thursday morning at 10 a.m. on the courthouse steps. I arrived at 9:30 with my pre-approval letter and cashier's check for earnest money. My parents were there, standing with Ashley and Marcus. They looked like they were attending a funeral, which, in a way, they were. The auctioneer started bidding at the amount owed, $89,000. 2 other bidders showed up, a young couple looking for their first home, and an investor in an expensive suit who clearly flipped houses for a living. The bidding started. $89,000. $90,000, called the young couple. $95,000, said the investor. $100,000, I called out. My parents stared at me in shock. Mom started crying. $105,000, countered the investor. $110,000, I responded. The young couple dropped out. $115,000, the investor bid. $120,000, I said firmly. The investor looked at me, calculating. At $120,000, his profit margin was getting thin. $125,000, he called. $130,000, I replied without hesitation. He shook his head and walked away. Going once, going twice, sold to bidder number 7 for $130,000. I walked up to complete the paperwork. Behind me, I could hear Ashley sobbing and Mom trying to comfort her. Dad approached me as I signed the final documents. Sarah, you just paid $41,000 more than we owed. You could have gotten the house for $89,000. No, I couldn't, I said, not looking up from the papers. The other bidders would have driven the price up anyway. This way, I controlled the outcome. What happens now? I finished signing and turned to face him. Now you have 30 days to move out, or you can stay and pay rent. How much rent? I'd researched this too. Fair market rent for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in this neighborhood is $1,800 a month. $1,800? Mom had walked over and overheard. Sarah, we can't afford $1,800 a month. Then you'll need to downsize, I said gently. There are nice apartments across town for $1,200 a month. But this is our home. Not anymore. Now it's my investment property. Ashley stomped over, her face red with anger and tears. I can't believe you actually did this. You bought our childhood home out from under us. I bought a house at a foreclosure auction, I corrected. A house that was being foreclosed because you gambled away the mortgage payments. This is all your fault, she screamed. If you had just helped us like family should, none of this would have happened. If you had gotten help for your gambling addiction like adults should, none of this would have happened, I replied calmly. I don't have a gambling addiction. I pulled out the private investigator's report. $137,000 in documented losses in the past year. 6 casino accounts, daily online gambling, credit lines at 4 different casinos. Should I keep going? She grabbed for the papers, but I pulled them back. Where did you get this? She demanded. I hired a professional to find out exactly what my family was asking me to sacrifice everything for. You had me investigated like a criminal. I had your gambling investigated like an addiction, which it is. Marcus finally spoke up. Sarah, you don't understand the investment opportunities we were pursuing. I turned to him. Marcus, you're not an investor. You're a gambling addict who convinced my sister to become one too. The only investment opportunity you've found is how to lose other people's money. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm an accountant. I understand money. And I understand that you've helped Ashley lose more money in 1 year than most people make in 3 years. We had some bad luck. Bad luck? Or mathematical certainty? Marcus, the house always wins. That's not bad luck. That's basic probability. Dad stepped between us. Sarah, what's done is done. What are your terms for us staying in the house? I looked at him. This man who had raised me to believe family comes first, who is now asking for the terms of renting his own home from his daughter. $1,800 a month rent, first and last month up front, security deposit of $1,000, no gambling allowed on the property. Ashley cannot live here unless she completes a residential treatment program for gambling addiction. Those are harsh terms, Mom whispered. Those are fair terms. And they're a lot more generous than the terms the bank was offering. What about Ashley? Where is she supposed to live? That's her problem to solve. Like an adult. Ashley started crying again. Sarah, I'm your sister. How can you be so cold? I'm not being cold, I'm being practical. The same thing you used to tease me about. But I have nowhere to go. You have lots of places to go. You have friends. You have Marcus. You have treatment programs specifically designed for people with your problem. I don't have a problem. Then you have even more options. The 30-day notice period was interesting. My parents spent the first week being angry with me, the second week trying to negotiate better terms, the third week looking for apartments they couldn't afford, and the fourth week finally accepting reality. Ashley spent the 30 days on Marcus's couch, still insisting she didn't need treatment. On day 31, I met my parents at the house with a rental agreement. We'll try it for 6 months, Dad said, signing the papers. But I want you to know, this doesn't feel like family. Family is what got us into this mess, I replied. Maybe what we need is some healthy boundaries. Mom hugged me awkwardly. I hope you're happy. I hope I'm smart, I said. Happiness is something I'll work on. The first 3 months were tense. My parents paid rent on time but barely spoke to me. Ashley called occasionally, usually drunk, to tell me how much she hated me. But something interesting started happening around month 4. Without Ashley's constant financial emergencies, my parents started relaxing. Dad started working in the garden again. Mom started cooking elaborate dinners. They began talking about things other than money and crisis management. "We haven't had to worry about Ashley's phone calls in 2 months," Mom admitted during one of my monthly check-ins. I didn't realize how stressful that had become. "Where is Ashley living now?" I asked. "She and Marcus broke up. She's renting a room from some girl she works with. She says she's doing fine." I didn't press for details. Ashley was an adult. She could figure out her own life. Around month 6, something shifted. Dad started asking me about real estate investment strategies. Mom began treating me less like a landlord and more like a daughter who happened to own their house. "You know," Dad said one evening, "I've been thinking about what you said about enabling Ashley." I waited. Maybe we were so afraid of letting her fail that we never gave her a chance to succeed. It was the closest thing to an apology I was going to get. At the end of the first year, my parents asked to renew their lease. "We like living here," Mom said. "It's our home, even if we don't own it anymore." "And you've been a fair landlord," Dad added. "Better than we probably deserved." I renewed their lease and even kept the rent the same. Ashley showed up on Christmas Eve. She looked different. Tired but cleaner somehow. Less frantic. "I wanted to apologize," she said, standing on the porch of what used to be her childhood home. "Okay," I said. "I've been going to Gamblers Anonymous for 4 months. I'm starting to understand what my addiction did to this family." "That's good." "I owe you money. $12,000, plus whatever interest you think is fair." I studied her face. She seemed sincere, but Ashley had always been good at seeming sincere. "Keep your money," I said. "Use it to stay stable." "I want to pay you back." "Then stay clean." "That's payment enough." We hugged awkwardly. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was a start. 2 years later, Ashley was still clean. She'd gotten a better job, moved into her own apartment, and started dating a guy who worked at a bank and had never set foot in a casino. My parents had settled into being renters in their own former home. They'd made peace with the arrangement and even started talking about downsizing to a smaller place in a few years. "We can't take care of this big house forever," Mom said. "Maybe when we're ready to move, you could sell it and help us find something smaller." "We'll see," I said. The house was now worth about $240,000. After paying off my purchase loan, I had substantial equity. The rental income covered the mortgage and gave me a small profit each month. But more importantly, I'd learned something about boundaries, about the difference between helping family and enabling dysfunction, about the difference between loyalty and self-sacrifice. 3 years after the foreclosure auction, I got a call from Ashley. "Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." "Okay." "Do you hate me?" I thought about it. "No, I don't hate you." "Do you forgive me?" "I'm working on it." "That's fair," she said. "I'm working on forgiving myself too." That conversation was 6 months ago. Last month, Ashley sent me a check for $5,000. "First installment," the note read. "I know I said you didn't need to pay me back, but I need to pay you back. It's part of my recovery." I deposited the check. 6 months after that, she sent another check for $5,000. "Second installment. Thank you for not enabling me. I hated you for it at the time, but I understand now." The final check came last week. $2,000. Final payment? With interest. "Thank you for loving me enough to let me hit bottom. I wouldn't be clean today if you had bailed me out." With that letter was a photo of Ashley and her boyfriend at a Gamblers Anonymous meeting where she was speaking to newly recovering addicts. I still own my parents' house. They still rent it from me. We have dinner together once a month, and the conversation rarely involves money or crises. Ashley and I talk every few weeks. We're rebuilding our relationship slowly, based on honesty instead of enabling. The house that I bought at foreclosure is now worth $260,000. I've used the equity to buy 2 more rental properties. I'm building wealth instead of giving it away. But the real investment wasn't financial, it was emotional. I invested in boundaries, I invested in consequences, I invested in the idea that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for family is refuse to enable their destructive behavior. Last Thanksgiving, Ashley pulled me aside. "I want to thank you," she said. "For what?" "For buying the house. For refusing to bail me out. For making me face my addiction." "You faced your addiction. I just stopped preventing you from having to face it." "Same thing," she said. "If you had given Mom and Dad the money, I would have kept gambling. I would have lost more money. I probably would have dragged you down with me." She was right. Enabling her addiction would have been the cruelest kindness I could have offered. This year, Ashley asked if she could move back into the house. "I'm ready to help take care of Mom and Dad," she said. "And I think it would be good for my recovery to give back to the family I hurt." I said yes, but with conditions. Rent paid on time, continued participation in Gamblers Anonymous, no casino visits, no online gambling, no investment opportunities with friends. She agreed immediately. "These are good boundaries," she said. "I need them." So now my parents and my sister live in the house I bought at their foreclosure auction. They pay rent to me, their daughter and sister who they once asked to sacrifice everything to enable an addiction. The irony isn't lost on any of us, but it's not bitter irony. It's educational irony. We all learned something about the difference between helping and enabling, about the difference between family loyalty and family dysfunction. Most importantly, we learned that sometimes saying no to family is the most loving thing you can do. I drive by the house sometimes and see Ashley working in the garden with Dad, or helping Mom with groceries. I see a family that had to fall apart before it could come back together in a healthier way. The foreclosure auction was 3 years ago. In that time, Ashley has been clean from gambling. My parents have learned to live within their means, and I've built a small real estate portfolio that provides financial security I never had before. But the biggest change is in our relationships. We talk to each other differently now, more honestly, more respectfully. When someone asks me how I could buy my own parents' house at foreclosure, I tell them the truth. I didn't buy their house. I bought a house that they had already lost to their own poor choices. I just made sure it stayed in the family. And when someone asks me how I could charge my own parents' rent, I tell them this. I charge them fair market rent because they are adult tenants living in my investment property. Anything less would be enabling the same financial dysfunction that got us into this mess in the first place. Family comes first. Dad was right about that. But I learned that sometimes putting family first means refusing to enable their worst impulses. Sometimes it means letting them face consequences. Sometimes it means saying no when they ask you to sacrifice everything for their mistakes. The house is just a house, but the boundaries we built around it saved our family relationships, and that's worth more than any real estate investment I could ever make. If you've ever been asked to sacrifice everything for a family member's addiction or financial irresponsibility, you know how hard it is to say no. You know the guilt, the pressure, the accusations of selfishness. But sometimes no is the most loving word in the English language. Sometimes the best way to help family is to refuse to help them avoid the consequences of their choices. And sometimes buying your parents' house at foreclosure isn't cruel revenge, it's financial necessity wrapped in family boundaries. What would you have done in my situation? Drop a comment below and let me know. Have you ever had to choose between enabling family dysfunction and protecting your own financial future? And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about family, boundaries, and financial independence. Remember, family comes first, but that doesn't mean family comes before your own financial survival. Until next time, this is Sarah Michelle Parker, reminding you that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable the people you love most.